Many of you know my story. As a child, I had a tumultuous childhood. My mom was married and divorced 7 times and had a lot of boyfriends in between. We were always putting roots down and pulling them up. I lived with my mother. I went to military school. I lived with my grandparents, with aunts and uncles. And so it was a lot of turmoil. I was a lonely little kid. And when I was living with my grandparents, I would pull the blanket over my head and talk to an imaginary character that I named Mr. Nobody. And I would kind of pour my heart out to Mr. Nobody. I didn't know anyone by that name. I just made the character up. In my own simple way, as a little boy, I was calling out to God. One day I realized Mr. Nobody had a name. It was Jesus. At the age of 17, I heard the gospel in a way I understood, and I asked Christ to come into my life. And it reminds me of a story we often talk about in the Christmas season of the wise men. Remember, they came from the east to worship him who was born the King of the Jews. But you may not be aware of the fact that the word wise man comes from the root word magi, which also translates out to magician. These guys were into the stars. They were into astronomy and astrology. They believed, falsely, that the stars would direct them in life. So God says, oh, you guys like stars? I'll give you a star. Check this star out. And the star that the Lord sent to them directed them to the child Jesus who had been born. Here's the takeaway truth. If a person is really seeking God, God will reveal himself to them. The Lord says, those that seek me will find me. You know, there's a lot of people out there in the crazy days of Christmas right now where we're all shopping and hunting for parking spaces and going to endless parties, etc., that are lonely and hurting. They don't know God. They don't know that Mr. Nobody has a name yet. That's where you come in. Give them the good news of who Jesus Christ is. And if you do that, that will be the merriest Christmas these folks have ever had.